This is part of the Farm Advisory Service series of videos for planning for winter. So in this video I'm going to be chatting about formulating a ration. The most important part of formulating rations is really to get the most out of your homegrown forage and optimising your stock's performance, be that your cattle or sheep. For your growing cattle, really knowing what your target is, knowing what you're aiming for. If you're planning to sell in March time or getting them finished by March, knowing how much time that'll take to get them from your start weight to your end weight, and therefore how much live weight, your daily live weight gain needs to be to get you to that point. For your suckler cows, if you're looking at your dry spring calving suckler cows, looking at their condition as they're coming into the shed off of grass, are they needing to lose a bit of condition or gain a bit of condition at that point? Would refer you to the QMS Mu Tube done by Basil Lohman, just about getting a hand on and condition scoring some cows, and just how much of a headache that can take away later on. So the earlier you plan and the gradual the weight loss can be, the better really. You don't want to end up close to calving and trying to take off a dramatic amount of weight or gaining dramatic amounts of weight, especially a month before calving when you're at that really crucial period. So some key measurements and information that you need before you formulate any rations is the weight of the stock. So if you're looking at cattle, if you can get them on weigh cells or use cull cow weights, something to give you a gauge of how heavy the stock are that you're actually rationing for. It's amazing how much varies, and how much you think they are can be quite an underestimation. Also knowing what feed you have available. If, like a lot of people, you're using silage as the base of your ration, getting that analysed and know how to best complement that with concentrates or with homegrown feeds. So once you know what you have in your silage and how well it's analysed, prioritising that to different stock who have different requirements as appropriate. So for your growing and finishing cattle that have high energy requirements, giving them the best silage available, and you're using late pregnancy, which also have a high energy requirement, and heifers in calf that are still growing themselves. For your dry suckler cows that are still away off calving, you can use your lower energy silage because their requirements are maintenance, but making sure you supplement appropriately. For example, if you're putting a lot of straw in the ration, making sure you're not diluting the protein too much in that case. So when you're feeding silage to your pregnant cows, remembering to avoid giving any mouldy silage. Some research from our SAC vets found that over the past 10 years, the most common reason for abortion in cattle is due to a bacteria called Bacillus licheniformis, and this primarily was found in pit silage that was fed to beef cattle 2 months before calving. It was also found in water troughs as well, so just being aware to clean out water troughs. Clamp management of the pit is also really important, making sure that you have a clean feed face and discarding any silage that hasn't been cleared up in front of them, making sure it's always fresh. So a nice quick way to do a ration check on farm is to use some rough rules of thumb. So for example, if I wanted to work out the maintenance requirements for a cow, it really depends on her weight. So a rule of thumb is 10% of her body weight plus 10 megajoules for her maintenance requirements. So for a 650 kilo cow, that would equal 75 megajoules of energy that she requires. So if I'm feeding a group of sucklers a bale of silage that lasts about 1 day, I need to know the silage analysis with the dry matter, ME, and the weight of the bale. So if I've weighed my bale and say it's 700 kilograms, and I'm feeding that to 25 cows, that will be 700 divided by 25, which is equal to 20 kilos per head per day. So the dry matter of my silage, I've had my silage analysed, it's come back as 30% dry matter. So that's the equivalent of feeding 8.4 kilos of dry matter per head. I've also got the ME of the silage, so it's analysed at 10.5 megajoules per kilogram of dry matter. So that's equal to 8.4 times my 10.5 ME, which gives me 88 megajoules of energy. So in this example, they're actually getting 13 megajoules more than they need. So they could be laying down fat So in this scenario, could you restrict their feeding, or could you alternate between feeding a bale of silage followed by a bale of straw the next day? So once you have your rations formulated, making sure that what's on paper is actually being fed in practice is really important. So simple things like weighing a bucket is a really helpful tool. So we've got some bathroom scales here, which are an easy thing to use. I've put my concentrate in the bucket and I've weighed that, and it's come out at 10 kilograms. Another handy thing you can use is a luggage weigher as well. So we can just tie this onto the top of the bucket, and you can see it's come out at 10 kilos as well. For feeding out minerals, it's a really handy thing to use a box. I've got this box here that I've weighed it on my kitchen scales, and it's come out at 1 kilogram. So when I feed that out to, if it's for cows, for example, that would work out at about 100 grams per head for 10 cows. And then you can just adjust it accordingly to how many cattle or sheep that you're feeding.